Hello and welcome to the Watson Weekend. We're here for another fantastic Friday. I'm your host here, Rick Watson, and I'm bringing with you another friend and colleague, Nick.
Another grumpy old man. I love the whole, I just caught that, and thank you for that.
No problem.
Yes, very happy to be here. I always so surprised that you keep inviting me back, but ecstatic.
Yeah, I guess I learned slowly. Is that the excuse I can give?
Exactly.
I'm not sure what...
Clearly knowledge equals frequency over time isn't working with you. But hey,
yes,
I'll take
I
it.
have a low conversion rate, you might say.
or you're just terrible at acquisition.
Oh, another zinger. It's Pun Friday here on the Watson Weekend, so we are happy to have you here. Just a reminder, we are on all the good podcast channels, Spotify, Apple, Google, and even some of the bad ones. So we're having you here. How's your week been, Nick?
It's good. Just to go back, distribution is distribution. We got to get out there. So we're on we're distributing everywhere.
Yes.
My week has been good. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I mean, I guess it's like kind of over. It doesn't really ever end, but it was super interesting. It's done. But yeah, TGIF, my friend.
Yeah, it doesn't end till your ship window ends. That's the idea. So I think that's where we go. Just a note here, we have a new sponsor that I'm happy to introduce. It's Miracle, a company I've had a relationship for a long time. Miracle is a global leading provider of e-commerce software solutions. They are able to help you create a value flywheel for your business with an AI-powered marketplace and retail media solutions. They have over 450 customers across the globe that are unlocking new revenue opportunities with Miracle. What's holding you back?
Nothing.
Indeed. They agreed to provide us something a little bit more punchier next week, and so we will work on that and kind of go from there. From a show point of view, we have quite an interesting show. We're going to dispense with the headline hangover and go right into a review of 2024. And we have a little bit. Tell us about the format a little bit, Nick.
I'm a little nervous. So we are going to go through, we have blindly done the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that was presented to me by Mr. Watson. And I said to him earlier, because I don't know, people know we share an office here at RMW Worldwide Headquarters. We were discussing some things, and I said, "Do you want to review the show?" And he said, "No." So we are blindly going to be discussing today the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I am really interested to see where we line up.
Yes. Yeah, I did a review. So one of the benefits of having a weekly podcast is I can kind of go back through some of my show notes and things and look across the year. But first, I'm trying to get an indication. There was a video here that I think the producer has worked on in my absence, and maybe he can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if he has it in the comments. I had a fever dream this week about you, if you remember, Nick.
I do. It's frightening. I mean, the producer is quite talented in what he can do with the scene videos. So I'm a little frightened now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to it this week. We've had a technical issue that we'll have to correct. So we will get you in the future. But I think where we can roll into is our good, bad, and ugly. So let's start with the good. I'm going to let you go first on this one, and then we can flip it for the bad. What were your... So you're going to give your top 2 stories, companies, ideas. It could be anything that were good for this year. You know, we're going to have a conversation about them. I'm going to give my 2, and then we can continue and go from there.
Got it. Okay, I'll go first with my first one. Okay.
All right.
So my first one, which I'm kind of thinking is on yours too, is Shopify, a win for everyone. So for me, the continued democratization of e-commerce was like huge, punctuated by incredible Q3 earnings. I want to say 26% year-over-year growth, lots of incredible feature enhancements. I feel like the move to enterprise is taking hold. Integrations galore, this incredible, ever-expanding app ecosystem. And I feel like they're just a runaway freight train at this point. So my first one was Shopify.
No problem. I actually did not have Shopify on my list because I knew you would add them. And so I could save one of mine for another
well
one.
Played.
I'm gonna go. My first good is the big marketplaces had a great year, and I'm gonna use this as a group. It's hard to categorize one particular, but I think Amazon and Walmart in particular had a fantastic year. Walmart has been drafting off Amazon strategies for a while. Their marketplace is growing quickly. Their fulfillment services and bottom line growth is growing quickly. Amazon is kind of the same way. At the end of 2023, I kind of openly mused, like, is Andy Jassy the right guy for the job? But some of the things that he put in place throughout 2023 have really borne fruit in 2024. AWS is still growing quickly. Their bottom line, their fulfillment network transition to regionalize their fulfillment network has really just crushed their free cash flow. It's more than doubled year over year. And so I think the big marketplaces are another in the good bucket.
I think that's an interesting one. Certainly not surprising for you. You love a good marketplace.
Yes.
And I think not lost, Miracle being the sponsor. And I think there are a lot of these tools out there now allowing people to connect into the marketplaces far more seamlessly. And kind of, we talk a lot about this age of efficiency and commerce everywhere. So like, why wouldn't you be in a marketplace? So totally agree with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Not a surprising call from Watson, but a good call. And I do agree on Jassy, right? You talked a bit about Jassy when he first kind of came on the scene, and he has done some really progressive things that have been great. So
yeah, he just put another $4 billion into Anthropic, and so they're committed. Although Alexa, I would say, is the worst AI interface, if you can call it that, I've ever seen in history. And the new Google commercial, if you haven't seen it, I think it's quite a cool commercial. But besides that, maybe they'll put a bullet in Alexa.
I wouldn't be upset about that. So
yes,
I enjoy my conversations with Google, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. So format wise, there can only be a driver. So you're the driver on this. What do you want to do next? Because you've teed up some of my other ones.
Why don't you do another good, and I'll do another good, and we'll keep going to the back.
Okay, that's how we're gonna do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So conceptually, my other good AI. I mean, it's such an obvious one, I know, but I feel everywhere we go, it's a topic of conversation. I think that it really is taking hold in terms of application. Like Shopify, where I think there's this democratization. I think that what AI is doing is allowing, it's allowing like the small guy, right? Like it's allowing the little person to use data application in decision making, inventory optimization, workplace optimization, like right sizing your team. Not an easy thing to do, but like AI is doing that, the automation of routine tasks. And I'm really bullish, and I know you are too, my friend, on conversational commerce. And as we see providers adopting like the whole GPT and synthesis of data and then using that to optimize, I think it's the good. I mean, and by the way, not only is it allowing like David to kind of get onto the playing field and compete with Goliath, it's allowing David to do so because it's all at a fraction of a cost with supercomputing power.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. Early in the year, there was a feeling that a lot of the AI use cases were kind of BS.
Totally.
Or could be used in like forecasting and planning, but not really in the customer experience as much. And I think that has been that that thesis has been totally blown to pieces this year. And it's clear that year on year, AI is obeying, I would say, something faster than a Moore's law type of growth, because of the improvements in the silicon, because of the improvements in the algorithms and the quality of the data. All those things are converging to what should be shaping up to be a super exciting 3 to 5 years in front of us from an AI development point of view. I frankly worry for my own job here on
I
the
was going
show.
to say like slash scary, and a constant topic of conversation in the
100%.
Kaplan
Yeah.
household is like, what are my kids going to do when they get older? But
yeah. By the way, Nick, I just want to be the one to regret to inform you that this is going to be your last show appearance. We have acquired your digital rights.
well, I don't know that I've given you a waiver on that, which is like a whole nother AI issue. But I do think that, one other thing worth mentioning before we hear your second good is,
Yeah.
I think that, like logistics, where I think the consumer has very little understanding of what it costs to bring a product from its FOB point, which is like, where it's made or dropped off, to like your home, right? And AI is going to really disrupt another category, which is creative. I really don't think the consumer understands the costs associated with content creation, advertising, media. And while it's kind of in its infancy, I've seen, to your Moore's Law point, incredible growth. And so $100,000 photo shoot all of a sudden could be rendered to zero, really, like the cost of an employee. So I'll be really curious to see what happens. But with that, what do you got for your second good?
Yeah, my second point is social commerce. I really think
talk about
we've seen exactly. What I'm like disappointing myself.
But want me on AI and you came back with social commerce.
Exactly. I'm like, exactly. I think I just kicked myself off my own show. We've seen over the past 5 years, will social commerce come to the West? And I think 2023 was wow, it seems like there might be something here. In 2024, I think it's been the year of like, this is serious and you cannot ignore it. 2 data points I'll have for you. Number one is Amazon signed not exclusive, a partnership with TikTok, such that you can buy from Amazon from TikTok, almost like a buy with it. It's like TikTok buy with Prime, almost that type of thing. And so I thought that was interesting. Like essentially the biggest of the big saying we can't ignore this because of discovery, frankly. And second, as I just saw a report I was reading right before the call, is like half of consumers use TikTok for gift inspiration over the past month. Half. And so to ignore TikTok as a discovery, inspiration, consideration channel as part of your customer journey, it's table stakes now. Like you officially cannot ignore it. The same way brands cannot ignore, like I would say 3 to 4 years ago, I think brands finally realized we can't ignore Amazon. We have to be there. We don't have to have everything there, but we can't have nothing there. And I think that's the same I feel with TikTok now that it's become in 2024 for social commerce.
So if you are operating a business that sells a good or a service and you're not engaging in some level of social commerce, close.
Close up shop.
Because, and we spend a crazy amount of time together. So you've probably heard me say this at least once in the last 24 hours, but as a kind of a formulaically driven person, right? Media plus data equals commerce. I think that in order to trade in the currency of trust, you have to have media. Media can be deployed effectively through social commerce. And to go back to the marketplace comment, it just isn't that hard. And Shopify has made it easy. And companies that are using other platforms, they're also really chasing that to make it accessible. So while I gave you a little bit of a hard time, I do think it's a really great point, because I think the theme of the 4 things we talked about is like the age of efficiency is here. Like you have to do as much as you possibly can with the tools that are offered to you. And if you're not afraid, if you're not conquering your fear of failure, learning from your mistakes and evolving, you're dead.
Yeah.
Period. The end.
Yeah. I also want to remind you, good to see you here, Liam. Thank you for always listening to the show. And Linda, who said that TikTok could become a much better Google shopping engine. I totally agree with you. If you have your good, bad, and ugly for the year, we would love to see it in the comments. This is a live show, and one of the funs is seeing what guests thought of the year. So, the bad.
The bad.
Let's transition the show to talk about the not so good things this year, but not the worst things this year, which we'll save for the ugly section. So
Got it.
My first bad is the consumer. I think there's been talks about the resilient consumer, the economy is doing great. I think most of that is financial stock trader bullshit. The average consumer is under a significant amount of stress because budgets are tight. I can't get out of the grocery store spending less than $200 freaking dollars in about 2 years. Costs of childcare and education continue to escalate with no signs of going down. all those things cut directly into a huge part of e-commerce, which is discretionary income. Discretionary income is essentially what Shopify primarily trades on. And a lot of brands out there are trading on discretionary income. Some brands have been able to avoid this trend. Hot brands, ones with interesting collabs like Elf Cosmetics or Lulu or Abercrombie, those sorts of things. But I would say there are so many brands that can't get a consumer in the door without a discount. So my bad is the consumer.
So I agree with you, but I disagree with you. It's true on paper. The consumer has more credit card debt than they've ever had before. It'll be interesting to see what Doge does about our country and our debt. The housing market is still a mess. People thought that interest rates would magically impact mortgage rates. They didn't.
Right.
So
the mortgage rates are still the same. I don't understand.
It's crazy, right? I don't either. And I'm not an economist. I pretend to be a lot of things, but that's not one. But the consumer should be in a worse position than they're reflecting. I do think that the industry has less inventory, which is putting it in a better position, but the consumer is winning. Like, they're in control. They're certainly investing in things like airfare, which is just incredibly expensive. Vacations, experiences, meals, right? I mean,
by the way, I don't think that's inflation. I think
COVID tax.
I think that is reducing routes and then airlines trying to increase utilization.
Efficiency. Yeah. When's the last time you took a flight where there was an empty seat? Like a row, right? You remember, those days? It's like, oh, I could stretch out. It's like, no, you can't.
Speaking of, do you get the seat right next to the bathroom? Yes or no?
Absolutely not. No, I have many like rules, and that
rules of life.
Yeah, I want to be away from the bathroom. I want to be on the aisle. I want to sit
away
from my
children. We were on a
children.
United flight, and Nick had what was almost broken to fisticuffs with the United flight attendant over the use of a laptop and a seat back compartment.
That is a little bit inaccurate. First of all, I was definitely agitated, but I wanted to hold my laptop in my lap, and she told me I had to put it in the seat front, to which I think in all the flying I've ever done, that's never been told to me. But you know what? Rick did, in a very Watsonian way, point out it is the rule. And so that was that. Awesome. But I have a different bad. So we was not on the consumer. My first bad is Amazon haul. Too little, too late. And, is it an erosion of brand identity? Yes. And for a company that's pretty incredible at execution, because look, ideas are just that until they're well executed. I think that it's a really saturated market. Like, do we need more cheap stuff from China direct to consumer? Probably not. Are there reputational risks with like lack of oversight? And is there, some cannibalization of existing Amazon? And lastly, like operational challenges. So like, I get it / don't get it, and I'm really interested to hear your take on this one.
Yeah, I think, look, it's interesting. The economy and things we've been doing, it's, there just been so many shakeups. And I think kind of going forward, I would love you to elaborate a little bit more on what do you think some of the causes of the bad in that is?
I just think that it sort of doesn't make a ton of sense to me, right?
Mm.
Um, it stretches them.
I mean, it seems like a good idea in theory. So like, it's almost like trying to give them optionality, right? And so if this becomes a good trend over time, and for instance, like, I don't know, just saying here, TikTok gets shut down, Temu gets shut down. Who else are they going to
You
go
think they're
to?
like waiting
Amazon. This is like a
wings?
chess. This is like a chess move for them. That's one possibility. The second possibility is, look, speaking of economists, while neither you nor I are economists, who has more economists than the Federal Reserve? Amazon. And so, do you think Amazon understands the consumer enough to know that they want these hauls? Do I think the experience is terrible? Yes, I agree with you. That's bad. Do I think it fits? It's a good look for Amazon's brand? No, I think it's a terrible look for Amazon's brand. Do I think Amazon should want itself to evolve into haul? No. All those things I totally agree with you. I do believe that there's sort of one good thing about this, that it gives them a little bit of an optionality, and it's like not so off brand because over half of the top sellers on Amazon are Chinese originally, and Amazon was kind of the originator of that idea, for better or worse, usually both.
I hear you. I mean, I'd love to hear an audience member chime in as to what they think, because we're not totally synced on this one. So we'd love someone to break the tie. But I do believe the de minimis loophole closes. It does
It's
impact this
gotta
business.
close.
I mean,
It's
it's
gotta close
crazy.
next year, right?
Yeah, it's got to close. It's just such an unbelievable thing to have not been addressed, which just goes to show you the inefficiency of government that clearly the lobby has maintained for this sector, this opportunity, which has really impacted us significantly in terms of a competition, which seems to be so important based on the results of the election, that would be allowed. But
Yeah.
anyway, all right, I've given you my first bad.
Yes. My next bad is Thrasio bankruptcy, and I would say kind of the end of the era of the Amazon aggregator. I mean,
Interesting.
it's somewhat of a, I won't say it's a cop out, but they've been like slowly dying since they've been born, from my point of view. But this was the year they officially, you have to pick an end point, and this was the year they officially declared bankruptcy. I do think they reorganized, but it's definitely a bad look. I think it was a bad idea all around, like buying businesses that are renting space on a marketplace, and they don't own the consumer seems like a pretty terrible idea, especially from someone who's so
That's
passionate
very
about
true.
customer data and customer
Yeah.
relationships.
So, yeah, I agree with you. However, look, I think there's ideas and execution, right? The idea is a good idea, right? Aggregate, leverage, optimize, and like excel. No customer data, very, very bad. And I think what they realized in the end was these were very, very disparate businesses and ultimately became a holding company of a bunch of sort of subpar businesses. I can't even say brands because
Subpar is the right word to use, though.
right, a person selling toilet paper in aggregate in like Utah out of a DC is pretty profitable for them, but not,
Yes.
there's no hockey stick growth. So it does go to show you though how much money is chasing how few deals. I do think that the private equity markets, the venture capital markets have a ton of capital. there is a selective moment in time, which has been, it's not a moment, it's been going on for a while. The capital markets are tough, but there are always these pressures to deploy capital because, again, another thing I don't think people think behind the scenes, they hear a lot about private equity. What they don't realize is there's a whole group of LPs behind private equity that want their money back.
Yes.
So Thrasio, I think, was like, oh my gosh, look at this. But it was a house of cards. And so I like the selection. Totally agree.
Yeah. Do you have a last bad?
Yeah. So mine ties to a lot of what we talked about. Sustainability. I mean, people just don't care. And, right. Consumers, it's crazy. Consumers.
This is a sad, not a bad, Nick.
I mean, it could have been an ugly, but it's certainly not a good. But consumers continue to vote with their wallets. They're telling us, it's like, tell me without telling me that you are unhappy.
Don't care about sustainability. Look at the Temu growth chart.
Exactly. And that's right. I mean, consumers want the Amazon world, convenience, instant gratification. They want deals. They want fashion. They don't want to have to own it forever. They're fickle. And I think you look at Shein, right? Their estimated revenue is going to go from, I think, like 32 billion to, I think, 42% increase is what I had read in advance of this.
Yeah.
And then fast fashion, another interesting stat, which kind of tells all, it's going to grow from 106 billion in 2022 to 185 billion by 2025. So
wow,
I could give you a whole bunch of stats.
By the way, speaking of, Forever 21 just lost its CEO. Did you see that?
Is she the current CEO that went to where did she go? To a place where I was like kind of surprised that they would take the Forever 21 CEO.
Yeah, they're going to Five Below.
Five Below, exactly.
Yeah.
We just got a great Bluey watch from Five Below for $3.99 for my 8-year-old.
Exactly.
So, but I mean,
Winnie Park,
yeah. I went to Forever 21. I think I sent you some pictures last weekend. It was not. It was
no bueno.
Awesome. No, and again, it's like I remember. And then we'll go to your last bat. I remember going to a Forever 21 years ago in what was then called the Fox Hills Mall in, like right by LAX. It's a great mall, and we used to go there to buy product for our, for fashion to figure, and it was under construction. And so they were redoing it, like taking it from like a 6,000 square foot store, like a 25,000 square foot store, and seeing the clothes, they had temporarily put them into a Champs, and seeing like the Champs in Forever 21, the clothes were just terrible. So, they brought them into this beautiful environment later on with like granite and thumping music, which made them great. But like, it's a moment, it's intoxicating. You buy it and then you just like never wear it. And so there's like, I want to say there's a stat that's like one like dump truck of wasted clothing is dumped into a landfill every second.
Ugh, so awful.
So that's my bad.
Which is
that
kind
makes you beg, like, but what are the uglies?
I know, right? I'm excited to hear the uglies. So my bads were consumer and Thrasio bankruptcy. So we're moving into the uglies. I guess you did the last bad, so I'm gonna move to my first ugly, which is Target.
Okay, here's our first. Here's our first ding, 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 ding. We're both together on this.
We're ready to rumble. So Target, I think I'm surprised. This is the first time we've actually agreed on something. Look, Target is, let's call it what it is at this point. It's a house of brands, and actually quite a good house of brands because their house brands are very good. They have 10 brands that have over $1 billion and $10 billion in sales. $1 billion in sales. $1 billion in sales. And however, those brands are only on one channel, Target stores. And so to the extent a house of brands is on a one channel environment, it feels like we're talking about doing business 30 years ago. Target can't get consumers in stores. When they do, they have to discount to get them there, and their conversion rate is poor. Things are starting to get more and more locked up. Shipping from stores has hurt Target's experience because now you have things that are not in stores. When consumer walks in, they're empty shelves. I think they're having inventory control problems. They have reduced their inventory levels, but I think they maybe have gone overboard. And when you say your inventory management is worse than Macy's, which it has, Target's inventory management has been worse than Macy's in the past 2 years, it's saying something.
It makes you go like this, like,
it's like freaking me out.
So you talked earlier about the success of Walmart, right? I think that would have been a great segue into this for both of us. Yeah, they're the odd person out. I think that you also talked about the consumer and discretionary spending. This is a big one. I think Target is I don't know, the kind of like the purveyor of cool, right? The Target private label stuff is great, the tchotchkes, but guess what? What's one of the first things to go? That. And so I think that, Walmart owns 22% of the grocery market, and Target, as big a business as they've grown that to, it's still under 4%. So it's not like they have this traffic coming for grocery. I think they're getting a ton of pressure from Temu, and I think that they have not, which is just incredible to me, not seen the writing on the wall and not adapted and evolved. And as a result, they're in trouble. And I don't think that this is like momentary cyclical trouble. I mean, I think this is foundational cracks in the foundation that are going to ripple. And as much as my wife, when I was talking to her about it, she loves Target.
I love Target too. Look, I mean,
we'll be upset.
There are
I
a lot
think
of
Target,
things. Yeah,
I think that they're in trouble.
I think, the big thing about Target for me is Brian Cornell has overstayed his welcome. He has engineered, I would say, one of the biggest business transitions in history, going from a store-based business to a growing online business powered by the stores. That has been a great story since 2014, 2015, when he joined. Their management team was stellar back then. Now, I'm not feeling the same things about their management team. I feel like they've lost a step, and I think they need some fresh blood in there. And I think, to their credit, Walmart has done a really good job. It used to be you have to have lived in Bentonville for 25 years to be above a VP at Walmart. They've hired like half a dozen Amazon execs that I know of, and like from other companies, Seth Dallaire, who's running their ads business, Manish, who's running their marketplace, Dave Glick, who's running their enterprise business services, their supply chain. Their CTO is former Suresh, is former Amazon and other companies. So the talent infusion has been just really great, and they just learned a lot. Mostly what not to do when they bought Jet.com, but a few things to do, meaning like we need to get faster.
Well, I think if you recall, on the last, Kaplan's Corner, I was challenged. I don't like to be challenged by our producer to sort of think about nature versus nurture. And ultimately, I think that where we landed is like a hybrid of that, right? There's an unbelievable culture at Walmart. And as a result, they from an inventiveness and progressive perspective have recognized the need to kind of build and by nature and nurture. And as a result, they've not stopped. And Target, while I'm not a fly on the wall in the C-suite, I have to imagine that there was let's add a zero, meaning like we have a good formula, right? We've got good stores. They're productive. We acquire customers through those stores. We have a good omni business, and we have great data, and that's going to serve us well. But I think that there's a lot of things, to your point, that they missed. So I'm with you.
Yeah. So. Marty says Cornell misses opportunity for a Costanza-esque exit, which is kind of funny. Is that the episode where Costanza slept under his desk at Yankee Stadium, or a different exit?
I don't remember.
Unclear. All right, that's my first ugly. It seems like
there's a worse. I mean, there's a worse ugly in my opinion, and I think
we agreed on our first ugly. So
are we gonna have the same on the second?
Let's get to your second.
So Nike.
Oof. You know what? They're not on my bingo card, but I already had to pick two. So go ahead. Go ahead with Nike.
It really begins with their sort of like pivot into DTC.
Such a good one. I give you mad props for this.
So, I mean, they begin this kind of madness by effectively killing their relationships with like Urban Outfitters and
Foot
DSW and
Locker.
Macy's, Foot Locker, right? And it's like, what? But we're going to be a data-driven direct-to-consumer brand. The margins are better, and it's what's going to serve us. Fast forward to, I mean, here's a quote: "We know Nike is not performing at our potential. While our consumer direct acceleration strategy has driven growth in direct connections with consumers, it's been clear that we need to make some important adjustments." Yeah. And so I think that, they crushed the soul of a iconic, incredible, historic brand quickly. And
Yeah.
it just saddens me because I'm a Nike person.
Yeah.
So I think that even though he's gone, JD has left the building, and they got, I think, Elliott Hill out of retirement, right, to try to restart things.
Mm-hmm.
Damage has been done from Nike. And while the American consumer, the worldwide consumer, loves to see failure and the phoenix rise from the ashes, it's our way. I don't really know. So this was a big fail to me, and one that maybe a decade news and noteworthy, but we'll certainly go with the year.
Yeah, and I think it's also like the idea that Kim Basin and Lily Meyer, who published that brutal Bloomberg profile of him, the man who made Nike uncool. I think it is not a coincidence that like a week later, John Donahoe stepped down. I mean, I've never seen a news article like kill a CEO like that. I don't necessarily think that was the only precipitating event, but it kind of reminds me of the New York Times op-ed by that precipitated Biden's exit from the election side.
From George Clooney, nonetheless.
Yes, 100%. Mr. Clooney played Democratic kingmaker and gave us the election mess that we've found ourselves in. But going back to Nike for a second, I want to just pile on the horrificness of and the brilliance of your choice of Nike as the ugly choice here. They acquired a company by the name of Artifact about 3 years ago in the middle of the NFT revolution for an undisclosed amount, but it is widely agreed to be above $1 billion. And so that's just like, it's not even like gasoline on the fire. It's like a nuclear reactor on the fire of the technology delusion that Nike found itself in when, to quote the famous Mars Blackman, it's the shoes. It's got to be the shoes.
Got to be the shoes.
I mean, come on, folks.
But what I would say to that before we get to your last bad is, on the one hand, you have to sort of applaud the effort to change when you don't have to, right? But at the same time, you have to be aware of who you are, right?
Yeah. Read the room, people.
Exactly. And, the amount of money that JD made is just criminal. And if you think about how it all goes down for these executives, shocked that they didn't make this decision sooner. And really just interested to see what happens. I mean, Nike is still a huge player in many different markets, but there are brands like Hoka, we talked about that recently, that are nipping at their heels and gaining market share across the board, not just in running, but in basketball and apparel and in coolness too. So, wah Nike.
Yeah, or no. So that is your ugly. My next ugly is, it's a little bit of a concept one, but it's like any retailer seeking a merger. I mean, it just seems like it's been a train wreck of mergers and acquisitions this year of like, hey, we're no, we're not. We're gonna do no, we're not gonna do it. And so in particular, two huge names, Kroger Albertsons is essentially you can kind of call that one dead. Tapestry dead. There's a whole bunch more beyond that, but any kind of merger above a certain size seems to have put the kibosh on it in the Lena Khan regime of terror that has gripped the retail world. And these aren't like, first of all, some of these aren't even that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's not there's no monopoly concerns. I mean, in a world where Shein is dominating fashion, why should Tapestry not be allowed to merge?
Yeah.
Like, please tell me.
I don't understand the monopoly that it would create, Capri and Tapestry. Right. I didn't understand Frontier and Spirit. Right. I think, look.
Yeah. Especially when like Delta and United are like kind of in their own class and there's sort of everyone else wanting to catch up.
Yeah.
Like, let's have another competitor.
We need more competition. And I think that really was the antithesis of what Lena Khan in her rulings was saying. It'll be really interesting to see from an administration perspective and like the whole notion of more of a free market economy, how the next 4 years go. There's clearly a lot of obstacles that the industry will need to overcome with tariffs potentially looming all around us. And some of the choices that are being made for, government positions. But if you think about it from the notion of like crypto and sort of fostering competition and growth, it should be interesting. But I think it's an interesting call on your part as well, that at the end of this term, at the end of this year now, like when the dust is settling, like what was that all about? And
yeah. I do not think, if you look back in history, Lena Khan will be remembered as one of the great, FTC regulatory minds. I mean, she did do some things with, with sort of the financial regulations a little bit and some of the dark pattern stuff, but it seems like around the edges, the stuff she was focused on blocking, she never got her white whale. Her white whale was Amazon, and Amazon is crushing it right now, as we saw from our good segment of the show.
Well, she did get Google.
Did she?
I mean, it's interesting as Google's stock price hasn't fallen. Like, it still seems to be like there's this whole antitrust.
In the battle between Lena Khan and Google, the markets are betting on Google, is what that is telling me.
It's interesting. Oh man, this was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure how this was going to go. And I'm a little surprised we only overlapped on one. But in fairness, we could have overlapped on two. But you know me well.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I wanted to mix it up again. So, we can wrap our ugly section. And I wanted to thank everyone from listening, as well as our new sponsor, Miracle, which we're happy to launch and announce this week. You're going to see their participation here in future episodes from an advertising point of view. They're also a new sponsor of the Watson Weekly, which will release on Monday. We also have a little bit of an outro video during the credits and a dance party.
Are we dance partying? I mean, without Jess, we're doing it? Okay.